Welcome to Small Talks, where we have small talks about a big God. I'm Krystal. Let's talk. We've been talking about remembering. This is part 2 to the devotional Choose to Remember. If you have not listened to part 1, go ahead and do so. I'll give you a quick summary. In the previous devotional, we talked about how remembering should call us into obedience. Forgetfulness and disobedience go hand in hand. In this devotional, I want to address one other way remembrance should spur us on to godly living. All right, so remembering should keep us humble. Moses writes in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 11 through 14, "Be careful that you do not forget the Lord your God by failing to keep his commandments, his ordinances, and his statutes, which I am commanding you today. Otherwise, when you eat and are satisfied, and you build good houses and live in them, and when your herds and your flocks increase, and your silver and gold increase, and everything that you have increases, then your heart will become proud, and you will forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery." Jumping down to verse 17, it says, "Otherwise, you will say in your heart, my power and the strength of my hand made me this wealth. But you are to remember the Lord your God, for it was he who is giving you power to make wealth." See, the Lord is getting ready to bring the children of Israel into the promised land. They were getting ready to walk into the land flowing with milk and honey. They're about to come up. That thirst issue they had in the desert, they would have no more, because this land would have fountains of springs. That hunger issue that they had in the wilderness, that would be a thing in the past, because the soil in the promised land would be rich for agricultural purposes. They would simply lack nothing. So Moses tells the nation of Israel, in your abundance, be careful. Do not forget the Lord your God. See, Moses knew something that maybe the children of Israel didn't. He knew that forgetfulness could produce pride. So that's why he says, be careful. I love that phrase. It means to be on guard, be vigilant. Like they have to actively work to remember. I think it's sometimes easy to remember God in our lack and when we are in need. Like we stay on our knees when the money is low. It's easy to remember that God is a provider in those moments. We stay on our knees when the marriage is not right and tight. It's easy to stay at the feet of Jesus when our health is not good or when we need peace in a situation. But what about when things are good? When you finally get the job you always wanted, the house you always wanted, the marriage is thriving, your mental health is good. It can be easy to forget that if it had not been for the Lord, we would not be where we are today. Verse 18, I'm going to read it again. It says, "But you are to remember the Lord your God, for it is he who is giving you power to make wealth." It is God and God alone that gave you that intellectual ability to get those degrees so that you could get a good job. See, the devil wants us to think that it's been our hard work this whole time, that it was our pedigree, it was our charisma that got us where we are today. It's our networking skills. And that's when pride starts to seep in. Like Moses said, you'll start to think that it was your power, your strength, and your hand that made you what you are today. For some of us, it might do us some good to remember when we were driving a hoopty and when we didn't know where our next meal was coming from, and when we wasn't making 5 or 6 figures, when we were barely making a figure. Maybe you've always been well off and you don't have any hoopty memories. Maybe you need to remember the days when you felt like you didn't have any purpose. You were going aimlessly from job to job. Maybe you need to remember when you were going from unhealthy relationship to unhealthy relationship. So when God answers the prayer, when he restores the relationship, when he heals your body, when you get that job, when he sends that spouse, when he gives you peace, when he fixes your problems, don't forget the Lord your God who brought you out. All I'm trying to say is that pride and remembrance cannot coexist. So may we remember our God, especially in our times of abundance, so that we can walk in all humility. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for the last and final part of Choose to Remember.